that.
Hello, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Rationalists of East Tennessee and the Atheist Society of Knoxville. I'm Joe Barnhart, and we want to welcome you to our program.
I'm Rita Lund, and we want you to know that if you don't believe in God, or if you do, you should not be alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find freethinkers, atheists, agnostics. This is a show for all of them and for anybody to a life committed, rooted in science, and free of supernatural beliefs.
Yeah, and now our topic today is, when does a person come into existence or into being? And we're going to deal with the abortion question. So let's get started on this. And see, this is sponsored by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Go ahead. And,
I thought you were stealing my thunder there, Joe.
Anyhow, tonight's meeting, the Society for the Atheists meet where? In Barley's?
At Barley's in the Old City, starting around 5:30. Look for the silver-jacketed copy of The God Delusion standing upright on the table. Everyone is welcome to our happy hour for food, drink, or conversation. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't.
Okay, and the Rationalists of East Tennessee have regular meetings every month. First and third Sunday mornings of the month are usually lectures and discussions, good lively discussions. The second Sunday, we hold book club meetings and discussions, and the fourth Sunday is a get-together and reflections meeting, and often potluck. That's the Rationalist version of communion.
We do potluck very well.
Yes.
Later in the show, we'll give you our websites to visit for additional details, including times and locations. So,
okay.
On to the news.
And what in the news, we've been reading a lot about the abortion question, and of course there's a vote coming up, I'm told. And basically it says, if you're a woman and you want to make your own decision, vote no. And if you want the politicians and others, vote yes. And I think that's the best way to boil it down.
That is succinct.
If you want to make your own decision, vote no on the proposition. And if you want others to have the control, vote. Yes, that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
That's a simple way to put it. So let's get into the question is, let's try to be fair to each side here. If you think the fetus is a person, then that's understandable. You don't want to commit homicide.
Right.
Okay. Now, in the 1950s, you even had some priests, if my memory is correct, and some bishops who thought that contraception was murder.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't they still?
Well, that's the question now.
Oh, no,
I'm just saying the 50s right now. There's been changes within that particular denomination called the Roman Catholic Church. Now, my question is, how did they discover that it was murder? Well, they said it's apparently their view is the sperm cell is a form of life, and it's a human sperm cell, and it's human life. And so they say, well, if it's human life, that's murder. I think that was their logic. Now, it seemed to me the same logic would be if you have an egg and it passes, it's a human being that's just been killed. And if now you have that onanism passage in the Hebrew Bible, incidentally, in which Onam was having, it was supposed that we touched on this briefly in this program before. Onam was supposed to carry out his responsibility to have intercourse with his sister-in-law if she was a widow, in order to keep the family name going. And he did, except at the last moment he pulled out. And according to the Bible, and this is the Bible, he spilled his seed upon the ground. That's the way the Bible puts it. And according to this story, this God Yahweh killed him for doing that.
Oh.
Now, that has been taken, by the way, to mean that if you just have any kind of nocturnal omission willfully without trying to impregnate somebody,
not good, huh?
Yeah, that's considered to be evil.
Oh.
And so that's why there was a lot of opposition among Christians in the 19th century against birth control. Now, this has changed radically.
Oh, yes.
But in the 19th century, in fact, in the 20th century, John R. Rice was a Baptist minister in Texas, very famous. He was an evangelist, a radio evangelist before television. He wrote a book, and I read it in high school. Bobbed Hair, Bossy Wives, and Women Preachers. And he had pictures of his 5 daughters, all with long hair, because he also believed it was sinful for a woman to cut her hair, because that was to throw away her. She's supposed to be more submissive, you see, have long hair to show the submission. But he argued, this was a Baptist preacher, not a Catholic, but he was a fundamentalist. Not all Baptists, by the way, are fundamentalists. We need to make that clear in this.
Yeah.
Not all Presbyterians are fundamentalists, not all. And so we don't want to classify all Christians as fundamentalists. That's not accurate.
No.
Any more than all atheists are Joe Stalin. Well, I've said that before, but I want to emphasize that. But this Baptist fundamentalist preacher said that it was immoral to practice birth control, except through abstinence, of course. And that's pretty much been the traditional view of the Catholic priests and the celibate bishops.
Those who are celibate.
Well, all of them are supposed to be. Now, that's not necessarily the practice of the Catholic people.
No.
That's a whole new ballgame. Now, what we're trying to say, or ask the question is, when does a not human life come into existence? When does a human person come into it? That's the issue.
Yeah, because
an egg is life and a sperm cell is life. It's not a pebble.
No.
So, if you have a nocturnal omission and you happen to be a priest, are you a mass murderer? Well, I don't think so.
No.
Okay. So, when does personhood come into existence? And that's what we're going to deal with. So you think an important age in childhood in which they start saying no?
Oh, 2. I mean, there's a reason for terrible 2s. Let's put it that way.
And I'm suggesting that might be something we ought to celebrate.
Oh, yes.
Because
you've got an independent person developing.
Exactly. And the main thing about that 2-year-old is the language. That's when they start speaking. And that's a revolution, it seems to me. And the 2-year-old is saying, look at me, I'm not an infant anymore. I have arrived at personhood. We have a question coming in. Before we even get started, go ahead, please.
Well, hello there. This is Faithless Forest, and I've been watching.
Speak up louder. We can't hear you.
Okie dokie. I'm trying to speak up, and I'm saying this is Faithless Forest. I've been watching. Wish I could be there with you today.
Thank you.
But, so, Joe, you were saying that the question, the pertinent question was, when does life begin, or when does personhood begin? Personhood,
yes.
And I want to challenge that.
Go ahead, good.
I think it works like this. No person has the right to absorb resources of another person without their consent. No other person is allowed to move into my home without my consent, eat out of my refrigerator without my consent. take my car without my consent, or have a blood transfusion from me without my consent.
Good point.
No one. That's fundamental, that I have a right of autonomy to my body, my possessions, and my health. Now, a woman who is pregnant is host to another, and let's call it a person, who is consuming resources. And I believe that it is well within the prerogative of any person to change consent on a situation like that, for any reason whatsoever, the lightest of reasons, such as I don't want to be pregnant anymore. Certainly, if your health is in danger, there should be no question. But I would challenge any viewer to think that how they would react if some other life form were to attach themselves to their person and consume resources at their expense, and not say that I have a right to evict that trespass.
Okay, thank you.
So that's my strong argument. Why don't you guys attack it? I guess I'd especially like to hear Rita's response.
Go. Who wants your response? Not mine. Go.
Let's see. It's like
how did I do? Did I make a strong enough argument for you?
Perfectly clear. In other words, a woman's body is her own person and own property, and so don't invade it. It's her right to take care of her own property, her own person.
I don't think any woman ever willingly wants to have an abortion. It's to begin with. I mean, if a pregnancy is either accidental, or if it's by incest or rape, it doesn't matter. No woman wants. I mean, an abortion is not something like signing up for eating chocolate-covered strawberries.
Yeah, they're not.
A woman thinks about this.
Yeah.
So that it's the woman's
choice.
It's the woman's choice.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah, she's not saying I'm choosing this as a means of birth control. That's not her. No. This is, your word is accident. It's mostly accident.
Yeah.
Not planned. So we've got to deal with that. Now, I don't think our caller challenged our view so much as added to it. The question is, his argument is well taken.
Yep.
So we're not trying to refute that because it makes good sense to me, and I think it does to you.
So as I understand that amendment, what it's doing is it's giving the government body in Nashville the right to make personal choices on behalf of bodily integrity, so to speak,
of the woman.
Well, and it's because it's specifically about abortion. It mentions it specifically. What it is laws being made for one gender by, among other things, members of the other gender.
Well,
maybe there are women there who would vote for it, but that seems rather appalling that an assembly would want to take upon itself the power to make special laws for a segment of the population.
Yeah,
I guess I wish we could maybe hear a reading of that amendment.
I have it right here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I tell you what, why don't I drop the line? We'll let others call in, and Rita will hear that amendment. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. This is the first amendment of 4 being offered on the ballot this time, and it says, nothing in this Constitution secures or protects a right to abortion or requires the funding of an abortion. The people retain the right through their elected state representatives and state senators to enact, amend, or repeal statutes regarding abortion, including, but not limited to, circumstances of pregnancy resulting from rape or incest, or when necessary to save the life of a mother. Now, I had just come home from being away for 6 weeks, Joe. And the phone rang, and it was somebody with, this is a public opinion poll. Will you answer? It's dealing with one of the constitutional amendments that we're going to be voting on. And this thing was read off to me, like that. And press 1 for yes, press 2 for no. Well, just hearing it
It's not that clear.
It was not that clear.
If you studied it,
oh, if you study
clear.
it, no problem.
But it's not that. Furthermore, it's a little misleading, in my opinion.
Oh, it's written in legalese. This is not in plain English.
Basically,
I mean, the
what
words
it says,
are not long. But,
if you want to turn the woman's right, I think a good summary. If you want to turn the woman's rights over to the politicians.
To the politicians.
They can decide whether
what
or
to
not,
do with my body.
And
Thank goodness I'm past that stage.
And if you're a woman and you want to have the right yourself as to what to do with your own pregnancy, then vote no on that. And we're not telling people how to vote on this. We're just trying to make it clear, and I think we're making it very clear. If you want to maintain the right for yourself to determine what to do with your own body, if you're a woman, vote no. And if you want someone else to make the decision for you who's in politics.
The politicians, the government politicians.
Let them do it, then to vote yes. It's pretty simple, it seems to me. Now, we're going to get back to the moral question rather than the political question. The moral question has to deal with facts.
Yes.
And there are a lot of facts. Now, here's a person who says that she's pregnant. Okay, I have a right to have an abortion if I want to, let's say, but she's still got to deal with her own question is whether or not this is a human person. Now, I'm trying to say that the real key question here is whether or not you're ending the life of a person, not simply doing away with a form of life.
Right.
Because when you brush your teeth, you've got DNA on your gums. That's a form of life. We don't consider this to be homicide.
No.
So whenever we talked about onanism, wet dreams or not, this is not murder. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
This is, we do know as a fact, as medical doctors have and people in medical research know, there are many, many spontaneous abortions. I've forgotten the percentage, but if you want to read this real carefully, there's a book by a physician called The Patient in the Womb, written by a doctor whose name I can't remember now, but he's down there in Georgia in a medical school at Mercer University, connected to Mercer, which is a Baptist school, but he is carefully trying to make it clear what the issue is, and that abortions are happening spontaneously around the world so that thousands and millions are lost. Now, if you're going to come in with a theological question, then I want to deal with you on this. That's called the problem of suffering and evil in theology, and there's a technical word called theodicy. And if we want to get into this with our viewers, I'm real prepared to do that. Okay. But right now we're going to get into the choice question of whether or not this is murder. Now, that those who think it's murder are opposed to having an abortion even in cases of rape or incest, because their argument is murder. But I remember asking a person, said, how did you find this out? And this particular person said to me, well, the Bible says, and then quoted me a passage that God knew, say Jeremiah or anybody, or according to this theology, when they were in the womb. But I talked to a minister friend of mine, and several, as a matter of fact, and I said, according to your view in theology, God knows you before you are conceived.
Oh, really?
That's not predestinate, that's foreknowledge. God knows you before you are conceived. You see, foreknowledge. Does that mean you exist as a person before you're conceived? And he said, well, of course not. I said, well, then don't quote the Bible then to prove some view on whether or not a fetus is a person, because the biblical texts are not dealing with that issue at all. They're dealing with the foreknowledge of God issue. But if you wanted to get into that issue, then we can do it. But the main thing is to be consistent.
Yeah.
And so one minister said to me not too long ago, I've got enough to do in my job. And then the minister's got an enormous amount of work to do. I say let other people have their own choices, and I've got my choices. We pay the price of our own choices. And I like that attitude, you know. And if he was a Baptist, I don't know what he's got the priesthood of believers.
Yeah.
In other words, every believer is a priest. So you don't need another priest telling you what your conscience is. You've got your own conscience in your own mind.
Yeah.
Use them and think. And most mothers say to their children, when they're trying to get them to think ahead, you got legs to walk on and you're using them. You've got a brain, now use them. I remember my mother saying to me, you got a brain or not? Use it. And I love the way she presented it. And that's what we're saying on this abortion question. You got brains, you got conscience, so let's get with it and use them.
You mentioned conscience. I believe some of the modification of the Catholic Church, all those Catholics who practice birth control, it falls under the rubric of personal conscience, doesn't it?
Well, they're right now.
Isn't that how it's dealt with?
The priests and the Pope, they're trying to rework their whole approach to family. They're right in the middle of trying to do this right now, because it's a corporation, and a corporation has got to listen to customers, and their customers are saying, your notions of contraceptive, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. We don't need celibate priests and nuns telling us how to manage our family life.
Yeah, that always was confusing to me, actually.
So they're trying to rework this in the Catholic Church.
All right.
Now, this you and I try to figure out. We do know that animals, say a dog and a cat, have emotional lives, and there's plenty of evidence that dogs and cats can think. But we don't conclude that they are therefore persons. Although there is a little book called Something on the Emotional Life of Animals, in which this person argues they are fellow persons, but common, ordinary language does not classify dogs and cats as persons, because we have strong differences. We don't send dogs to public school, for one thing, and we don't have special hospitals for cats that we do for persons, because we have different values. Now, what I'm saying is a person comes into being different from what just a dog or a cat is. You have to have not only what they have, feelings and thinking. You have to have a conscience, not shame, but guilt. The capacity for guilt in changing your values.
Right.
To wrestle with a value question. Now, a dog can understand shame. For example, you teach a dog to get off the couch, and on the floor. Don't get on the couch. And you can train him.
Oh, no.
You go outside and look in the window, and very often you'll find the dog on the couch. Then you come in, he jumps off. He knows what shame is. But guilt is whenever you don't need another eye outside. You've internalized the values, and you decide, and you make your own guilt. In other words, you say, I did this. Somebody maybe points out the fact you did something wrong, and then you'd say, yeah, I did wrong.
So where are we going with this in terms of, I'm thinking of something that a friend just reminded me of the other day. Is it not in the beginning, in the creation myth in the Bible, in the beginning, when God created Adam, and then he breathed into him, and then there was life, So
a living, breathing thing is probably the better translation of it. Yeah.
that made Adam. This is in the creation myth in the Bible.
Yeah, it's sort of.
So I'm.
Yeah, I think.
How does that relate to?
Okay.
There being supposedly a person before that person ever takes a breath.
Okay.
See, because that's. I mean, I'm of the opinion that you have to have a breathing
what you're quoting is
person.
That's why quoting the Bible is not going to help in this, because you also have for example, you have passages in which Jacob is said to be, his seed in his loins are kings in his loins. By the way, what happened to the women in this process? It's just his seed. Same with Abraham, his seed.
It's it's mythology.
Yeah, and it's male and it's male ego mythology at that.
So, let's get back to this person.
Okay, personhood then. What I'm trying to do is distinguish a dog from a person. Okay, now when a dog is or a calf is born, after a while they learn to walk pretty quickly.
Right.
It takes a long time for a human being. We discussed this briefly on this program before. It takes a long time, at least a year, for a human to walk, and it takes another year after that before they start talking.
Right.
Now the reason is because the way I look at it, we have a brain our brain has to accomplish a lot more than what a dog's accomplish. Yeah. And the major thing is the language. Now you don't say to a dog, let's see what you think about this, because you just don't have a conversation. They don't have, in that sense, the kinds of opinions that they can put out independently and they can be discussed. Right. So this is where personhood comes into being. Let's suppose there were angels, okay, and they came here. We would not eat angels because we would regard them as persons. Why would we regard them as persons?
Because supposedly they have thinking power,
and communicate. Exactly. And you can disagree with them. If I present a viewpoint, just one declarative sentence, you can say, Barnhart, I think this is mistaken, and you can help me correct it. And that is an enormous advance. You don't do this with your cat.
No.
You know? Now, what I'm saying then, personhood, it takes time becoming a person, and it takes 2 wombs.
Right.
And that's...
Yeah. The first one is to create...
The whole... You're beginning to... You got to start the brain and the rest of the body.
Yeah.
And then the passage, what's called the birth canal, is too small. Now, when we were 4 legs, the canal is bigger. But now, by standing upright, the human beings, the passage is smaller, and so we come out early, and the brain has got to grow after. When it comes out, the brain's not developed enough for it to learn to crawl.
Right.
It has to grow. So in that sense, we're all premature. And language takes at least 2 years for it to develop. And you have to work with it.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that the whole issue of abortion is not the murder question at all, because you don't call murder until you have persons involved.
Right.
And it's not an issue. Now, I would make this concession, however, because it's so crucial. Some kids or children develop a little earlier. Let's suppose some children develop at 20 months rather than 24 months. Yeah. Okay, and I could say there might be a possibility, you see. So it seems to me that if you have what's called a buffer zone, then you declare after birth then you can call that a person, even though technically it's not yet. You start treating it as a person in the social womb, because that's how it becomes a person. And I want to be quite serious about this. If you, we often have the statement, well, now after a certain number of months in the womb, if it comes out, it can live on its own. No way. It's not going to live on its own. It's going to die if it's left on its own.
Right.
Because it has to be nourished and fed for at least 2 years for it even to get to be a person. And that's the social womb. And that's, by the way, we ought to say to our audience, that's where fatherhood is so crucial. He's a major part of this social womb that we're talking about.
Oh, yes.
Where singing is important. It even ought to start while it's in the womb. But singing and nurturing and rocking and feeding, and talking to a child, even when they can't talk, is a way to gradually feed that little brain so that they eventually, slowly emerge into persons. That's a real transformation.
Oh, yes.
But it's not supernatural. It's just work. Are we ready for a program break yet? I don't think we've been signaled yet. So
no.
let's keep on going.
Oh.
Now, so whether you hold to a theistic point of view or a non-theistic point of view, we have facts to deal with, and we have work to deal with. The work is the second womb, and that's why these fathers need to realize, and most of them that I know of they know how important it is to nurture this child, because we have too much to go. We have miles to go, as it were, before personhood comes into being. And those 2 crucial years may be important to help develop moral stability so that it doesn't turn into a sociopath. Or put it this way, that's how you help keep them from being sociopaths. If they learn early to be accepted and loved and cared for and wanted.
Yes.
Until they can...
Every child should be wanted, because no child asks to be born. So every child deserves to be wanted.
I remember I pulled this on my father once when I was about 14, and he wanted me to do something I didn't think I wanted to do it, and I said, I didn't ask to be born. I love what he said. He was an old tough dude. Nobody asked you, I hang around either. I got to work. That was exactly what I needed to be told. I knew this man. He loved me dearly. He even taught me to sing. Imagine old tough Texan teaching you to sing. And I saw him when my father came to Texas when our firstborn came into the world, and my son Richel. And I remember watching this tough Texan put him on the table, and a mother would think it's comical to watch. And he said, no, real sternly, a kid's legs got to be straightened out. They got to be, you don't want them to be wrinkled up, And I could see what he was doing. He was rubbing Jenny. This kid's
You needed an excuse. Huh?
He was taking on the mother role, even though he was this tough. But you could see, you got to keep this kid's legs straight, But it didn't fool me, and it didn't fool my wife or my neighbor, and it was just comical to watch this guy. But he was doing exactly what you needed for a child, is gently stroking, singing to a child, and feeding not only the stomach, but also the brain.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? The
Break?
we got a program break come in, and so we got to make a few comments. And we're if you're tuning in, we're on Freethought Forum. It's a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee, and it's funded jointly by these two groups and by individuals who want to help support. Our programs are live every Tuesday at 5 o'clock, 5 to 6 on Eastern Time, in community access television. You can see it streaming online outside Knoxville area. Just go to ctvknox.org.
This is a call-in show, and we're live today, October 7th. And viewers can call in. The number is on the screen. It's 865-215-2288.
88. Okay, good. And the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, meets 2 times a week. We have evening meetups from food, drink, and conversation. And the purpose of ASK is to supply a venue of camaraderie and community and outreach to atheists, free thinkers, and like-minded people who want to have a rational discussion in East Tennessee.
The Rationalists of East...
Wait a minute, we'll wait a while and see what our what's on the screen.
Oh, that's right.
You got something on the screen coming up, we think.
If you live in or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else, well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun. Do you find stories of talking snakes laughable? Do you prefer the scientific method over supernatural beliefs? Are you concerned about religious leaders and organizations imposing their values and rules on your body, your family, and the rest of our society? Well, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people who support skeptical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org.
Okay, we're back with the Freethought Forum, and we've got some more discussion on when does personhood come into being, and we're obviously trying to deal with the abortion issue, and you've got something there maybe you could present.
Well, thanks to my friend Pauline Hamilton, who put it so succinctly, in terms of the amendment number 1, voting no will continue to ensure that our pregnant children and women can seek alternative, quality medical procedures with the pregnancy when a pregnancy threatens their health or their life. Voting no will protect women and children who have been raped or who have been victims of incest from being forced to complete a resulting pregnancy.
Right,
And voting no will allow women and parents of pregnant children the right to privacy and to protect their ability to make deeply personal decisions in consultation with their family, their faith, and the advice of their doctor. On the other side, if you're voting yes, you're letting the government politicians make personal decisions about pregnancy.
Okay, that's a pretty good summary, it seems.
Yeah, I'd really love to hear what someone might have to say, one way or another.
Yeah,
we're sitting here
very, very eager
with
to
our
hear.
minds made up, but... Well,
let's get on with the question of building personhood. We hear, especially in the school system, teachers tell kids, we have to learn to build your character. Parents talk this way. And it's good talk, because what they're saying is we don't come into the world like an automobile off of a factory. We don't come ready-made. Part of being a person is that other people contribute to our coming into being as persons.
Right.
It's not just a physical process. It's a physical and a social process and a psychological process. All of it. In other words, I think we're in agreement on this. To being a person is a highly complicated phenomenon.
Yes.
And
that's why each one of us ends up so unique.
Absolutely. Because there's so many things going into making a person. And so building character is literally true. You are not born with much character.
No.
And so you gradually, and the contribution of the individual as the individual comes into being, first of all, as a human being, but not as a person. I mean, he's not a giraffe, or she's not a kangaroo. But personhood comes into being by interaction with the community in the physical environment. And the community is the social womb.
This is why I feel so strongly that no child should be born that is not wanted.
Exactly.
I mean, because there's so much involved
in making
in rearing someone to grow up to be a healthy, well-adjusted person.
Well, that phrase, it takes a tribe or a village.
Village, that was Hillary Clinton's book.
Yeah, and then she borrowed that from Africa. And that's right, it takes a village or a community to help. And this is why neighbors and relatives who aren't parents are really crucial periods, crucial contributions to an individual's life.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. And so even if you're out there in their audience and you don't have kids, you still are a major contribution, or can be, by helping parents develop these children. We all know that a good mother and a good father want to develop friends who can help them. Because the more help you have, my granddaughter, for example, has a neighbor, and she goes up and carries out this neighbor's garbage, but that neighbor, and does a lot of things for this neighbor because she has a bad back. But this neighbor, on the other hand, is enriching this child's life.
Oh, yes.
And I think this is unfortunately, this neighbor is moving to Florida, but that's our loss, because this is an amazing enrichment of the social womb. Just one neighbor. We got a call coming in. Go ahead, our caller. Well, I guess our caller didn't call in after all. Well, we thought we had a caller coming in. We'll be patient. Okay, let's continue with this. I've been doing all the talking here. You make some more contributions here. What are you thinking? Take more morality. How does morality develop, in your opinion, for a child? He's not born with morals.
First of all, by consistent parental modeling of morality.
I like that. Consistent.
Consistency is the name of the game with children. I mean, if you say no about, you don't touch the stove, you say no every time. You just don't let the child, hang around and get himself all burned up. No, consistency and morality is the same way. I mean, consistent modeling of just anything. I mean, if you do not want to...
Oh, yeah, modeling. Okay, we got a caller. Don't lose your thoughts. Hello to our caller. Can you have your name?
Yes, my name's Joan.
Hey, Joan, go ahead.
I'm a little confused here. You're talking about personhood up to it and going well beyond pregnancy, and yet I thought the question today was pertaining to abortions.
Right.
And the question of personhood, or if not personhood, the time at which a fetus could live on its own.
Okay.
And I think that probably a distinction has to be made in that people can decide on abortions fairly early on, like probably the first 2 trimesters, or perhaps a little, not quite that long. But after a fetus is viable, then it's it's a little too late for an abortion, in my mind. But I wonder, when I'm listening to you, it seems like perhaps you could wait till the child is 2 or so, and until they. No.
What I like about your question is you're pressing for consistency. Go ahead, make your point.
Well, the point is, the discussion is about voting on how to look at the amendment that on abortions, which would give the legislature the power to decide about them.
Well, that was a secondary question, but we were dealing with the moral question, but stay with me now. Don't leave us. What we're saying is the moral question has to deal with factual question, and then the political question comes later. And we're trying to deal with the moral question and the factual questions that come with it. And
but
so, go ahead.
What does the child's education or becoming more mature after birth what does that have to do with a question of abortion?
Okay. Your question shows I hadn't done a good job, and we haven't. So let us try to deal with this. We're trying to help people say to themselves, say here's a woman. If I have an abortion, are they right saying that I'm committing murder? See, that's one question. And I don't think it's good to put your head in the sand and ignore it. Okay? Now,
what's the other question?
Well, I want to deal with that question first, because you've already dealt with the other question. Is a woman is a person, and her body is hers, and so she has a choice. And I'm trying, and Rita here and I are working on the questions, trying to work with the woman. If she wants to make a decision, how does she go about it? Okay? Now, go ahead, Joan. You were saying something and I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure that all the information about how the child develops after it's born has a lot to do with the original question the woman is asking. She's in whatever her here and now is right now. She may be raped or have incest or something, or have accidental pregnancy, the kind that you've been talking, that Rita talked about.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Joan, are you with me?
I'm listening.
You think a fetus is a person?
I think that the thing that matters in this particular case is it viable? I don't, outside of the womb. I don't think that, and I just don't think that it's philosophical questions about whether it's a person or not can be answered that well. I mean, that's not what
you know, I've heard a lot of people say this. We can't know. And what's interesting to me, Joan, is those who say we can't know, then close the door, and then you have one group saying abortion is immoral and murder, another group saying, no, we have freedom to make, and you have both sides saying we don't know. And I'm trying to say...
Oh, I can't agree with that.
I can't either.
No, I mean... I know.
Go ahead. Don't leave us, Joan. Stay with us.
No, I'm listening to Rita.
I know from personal experience. I had 2 miscarriages, and they happened to happen at a Catholic hospital, because that was...
Go ahead.
And when there were many people checking out at the same time, and my husband told me this after we got home. He said, you know, I was waiting down there with everybody, and all of a sudden somebody called out, one of the clerks, where's the spontaneous abortion? Which, of course, is the technical name for a miscarriage. I mean, that's the real name, you know. And everybody looked, and I think Andrew felt like this, like he should go like that, you know, because they were talking about me, and I had had this miscarriage, you know, like half term.
That's what it is. It was spontaneous.
You know? And that, I mention that because if abortion were across the board acceptable, people wouldn't have to wait till the end.
Exactly.
They could they wouldn't have to figure out, how am I going to get 500 miles away, and then have to wait 24 hours. And half the time, people that are needing such a service, they don't have any extra pennies, and maybe that's one reason they don't want to have another child, because they know they couldn't bring that child into the world and nourish it properly.
Okay, now
you know?
that's
just
those are good, sensible arguments. Now let me ask you this: do you agree with Joan? Joan, stay with us now.
Okay.
That a fetus can, at a certain stage, a fetus inside the womb could survive on its own.
No, a full-term baby couldn't survive on its own without being fed.
Exactly. See, that's our point.
I mean,
Joan, is that the social womb is absolutely essential for a baby, a fetus beyond a certain point. It cannot survive on its own outside the womb without the second womb. And that's why we brought the whole thing up in the first place.
So are you saying then that if all that time while the child can't survive on its own?
It is not. Go ahead, finish. I didn't mean to.
Well, that doesn't really answer the question of at what point should you not have an abortion.
Okay.
I mean, keeping a child alive after it's born and caring for it and loving it is totally different from deciding earlier on whether this is a very bad time for that child to be born.
Okay, now that's a sensible question, if you don't mind my saying so. One, I think you would agree it basically is going to depend on the mother's health. I mean, you're not going to be a threat. You know, we already have the assumption the woman is a person. And so we have primary concern is about her health. And if it's going to be infringing on her health, then abortion might be the only option.
I completely agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next thing is, now that's one thing. If, however, she still wants an abortion for her own reasons.
Other reasons.
Yeah, her other reasons, that I'm arguing against those who claim she's committing murder. You see what I'm trying to argue? That you can't...
I must be a little slow because I didn't really pick that up during the discussion.
Well, I did do a lot of fast talking, so it's not surprising. So what I'm trying to defend these women who make their choices, when they are called murderers, these guys are importing their own version of when a person comes into and I want to hear arguments, not just talk. And what I'm saying is a fetus cannot survive on its own at any point. In other words, it takes the second womb, the social womb, for any fetus to survive after birth, no matter what age, no matter what months. And so these are facts we have to deal with. And we're arguing at this point that personhood, as over against just life, doesn't come into being until after birth. Now, you could raise the question, I thought you were, well, would infanticide be moral? And I would argue no, because of the buffer zone argument I gave.
Well, I wouldn't.
Go. Go.
When you say infanticide, you're talking about an infant, and an infant is a person that has been born.
It's been born, so it's not a threat to the mom's body anymore.
Well, I'm past the health argument.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm thinking in general terms. When you say infanticide, you're talking about killing babies.
Right,
Babies
exactly.
are not creatures in a womb.
Right, exactly.
Babies they have been birthed. You know.
So what I'm doing is I'm pressing the consistency of my argument and saying someone could say, if they were trying to press me for consistency, and they should, well, Barnhart, aren't you saying that if a fetus once the baby is born, if it's not a person until 2 years or so, isn't that infanticide? Aren't you opening the door to infanticide?
Yes, that's...
And I think that's a good, sensible argument. And I'm arguing. I think that's what you were getting at, Joan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I was surprised that you're going that far into the question because I don't think people who are trying to decide whether they can keep this, give birth to a baby, or whether it is not to give birth, aren't thinking about aren't worrying about what, I mean, yes, they're worried that the child might not have a decent life.
Yeah, sure.
But they aren't thinking of when does a child become a person, and you're saying you're trying to help them decide by saying that personhood comes quite late.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, all right, I'll let you go now.
Well, I do appreciate you. I always appreciate Joan's calling in, because she's, does thinking on these things. What I'm trying to say.
I'll let you go. It's getting very late in your time.
Yeah, we better hurry on this. I appreciate it, Joan. So we're saying that the buffer zone means we're not advocating infanticide. We should say legally, once it's born, it's defined as a person. And I would even go so far as to say, if you decide you're going to give birth to a child, you should treat it with all respect because you're affecting the life of that child after it is born. And so you owe it not to be boozing and smoking, and you should take good care of your health, and the father should contribute to that too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Well, we've got a little more time. Go ahead. You were saying something. I would grant a lot of people hadn't thought about this because they've had, they pay philosophers to think about things because they got to make a living. I mean, I don't hire a philosopher to do my plumbing because he's done thinking on that, and that's why I need his help. But I did have a plumber come and do plumbing, and he picked my brain about other things. I didn't charge him, though. Go ahead.
Very good. I have taken a young woman to have an abortion when I lived in Connecticut. And I know that was a very necessary thing for her at that time. And I was glad that I could help her.
To be of help.
And take her home and, help her just recover.
Because
she had alcoholic parents, and there was nobody to help her. And this was, by all means, an accident that had happened, that she got pregnant. And I know how that woman went on, and she went to college, and she married and she had her own little boy.
Well, we've got just a few minutes. I want to thank our audience and appreciate